Let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking something literally all of us deal with every single day: corporate privacy management. It's really the hidden engine of our modern data economy. I mean, think about it. Every time you click accept, buy a gadget online, or download the newest app, you're entering into this massive invisible exchange. But what actually happens to your personal information once it crosses over into the corporate world? How do these businesses handle, protect, or, sometimes completely lose the data we trust them with? Let's find out. First up, let's talk about the massive financial stakes involved here, because we're not talking pocket change. According to IBM, the global average cost of a single data breach, it's over $4 million. $4 million! And if you look at sectors like healthcare or finance, that number just skyrockets. So mishandling personal data isn't just some minor operational hiccup anymore. It's a catastrophic financial event, one that can absolutely crush a business's short-term profits and, frankly, its long-term viability. But honestly, the real cost? It's reputational. A 2022 Cisco survey actually found that 75% of consumers simply will not buy from a business they don't trust with their data. 75%. That means privacy is the ultimate currency of consumer trust. Without it, a business basically cannot survive today. We all expect companies to be truthful, transparent, and responsible, right? Ultimately, the way a company treats your personal data is a direct reflection of how much they actually respect you as a customer. So here's how we're going to unpack all of this. First, we'll look at the business of trust, then move into building a privacy program. After that, we'll clarify policies, notices, and choices, look at managing privacy risks, and finally wrap up by surveying the global privacy landscape. All right, Section 1, the business of trust. Let's look at the foundation of exactly why data treatment has become such a massive hot-button issue for all of us. So a huge driver of this public angst is something called surveillance capitalism. It's a term coined by Professor Shoshana Zuboff, and it basically describes business models that rely on collecting your data just to influence your behavior. We all felt this widespread public anger over incidents like the Cambridge Analytica scandal, right? That really introduced this concept to the world on a massive scale. And it showed that we, the consumers, are actually paying attention. We're demanding transparency. In fact, people are even pushing regulators to consider things like a duty of loyalty, where businesses would literally be legally required to act in the best interest of the people whose data they're holding. Moving right along to Section 2, building a privacy program. The crucial thing to understand here is how organizations actually build the internal machinery to manage this trust and track your data. It takes a dedicated team: chief privacy officers, privacy engineers, analysts, all working together. These privacy pros are responsible for safely guiding your personal information through 5 very distinct stages of the data lifecycle. It starts from the exact moment your data is created or collected. Then it moves to how it's stored securely, how it's shared and used, how it's archived when it's no longer immediately needed, all the way down to its final permanent deletion. And here's the catch. A practice that protects your privacy while your data is just sitting in storage might be completely wrong when that data is actively being shared. So this whole cycle, it requires constant, vigilant management. Okay, Section 3, policies, notices, and choices. What's really fascinating here is how a company's strict internal rules translate into the stuff you and I experience every day on the web. You probably hear these terms used interchangeably all the time, but they are actually very different things. Think of the privacy policy as the strict kitchen rules for the restaurant staff. It's a purely internal document that assigns roles, responsibilities, and even punishments if they break the rules. The privacy notice, on the other hand, well, that's the menu presented to you, the customer. It's the external statement on a website telling you exactly what data is collected and how it's going to be used. And why does this matter? Well, if a company breaks the promises they made on that menu, regulators like the FTC can swoop in and hit them with enforcement actions for deceptive practices. So, when you're interacting with that menu, say clicking on one of those annoying cookie banners or signing up for a new service, you are legally expressing your user preferences. And you generally do this in one of 3 ways. First up is opt-in, which means they absolutely need your affirmative consent before grabbing any data. This is usually for sensitive stuff like children's data or your medical records. Second is opt-out, meaning the company's just going to share your data by default unless you actively step in and tell them to stop. And third, there's no option. This is for super standard accepted practices. Like if you buy a pair of shoes online, you obviously don't get an opt-out choice for giving your address to the shipping company because, well, they kind of need it to deliver your shoes. But let's be real, managing these choices isn't always that straightforward. We've all been on that one website where it is unbelievably easy to just click accept all, but it feels literally impossible to figure out how to say no, right? Well, those deceptive designs are actually called dark patterns. And this is exactly why US state laws are increasingly stepping in to prohibit these shady interfaces that are basically designed to trick you into giving up your data. The rule is simple. Choice has to be meaningful. If it's easy to give your consent, it must be just as easy to take it back.
Let's jump to Section 4, Managing Privacy Risks. Because look, having a great policy is wonderful, but executing it securely in the real world, that is a whole different ballgame. Good information security actually relies on this super powerful rule of 3. It's known as the CIA triad, and it's all about protecting your personal data from being misused. First is confidentiality, which simply ensures that only the right people are looking at your data. Then integrity, which guarantees that your data hasn't been maliciously altered or somehow corrupted along the way. And finally, availability, meaning that when authorized users actually need to access the data, the systems are up and running, not crashing. If a business drops the ball on even one of these 3 pillars, your privacy is officially compromised. Now, to actually apply those principles in real life, professionals use strategic blueprints like the NIST cybersecurity framework. It helps systematically mitigate threats from hackers or, honestly, just internal human errors. It's a 5-step process. Companies have to identify their vulnerabilities, then protect their systems with safeguards like heavy encryption. Next, detect any weird anomalies hiding in their network. Then they have to respond immediately when an incident inevitably happens. And lastly, they need a solid plan to recover and get the business back online. It is a continuous, non-stop loop of defense. Okay, but here's where things get really tricky. What happens when a company has perfectly flawless internal security, but then they hand your data over to a third-party vendor? This creates a massive vulnerability. I mean, modern businesses outsource literally everything these days, from payroll to cloud storage, which means your data doesn't just sit safely in one company's basement server, it travels. To put this into perspective, think about the infamous SolarWinds hack in 2020. Hackers didn't sit there and individually attack 18,000 different organizations to get their data. No way. Instead, they compromised just one single software vendor, SolarWinds. When SolarWinds sent out its perfectly normal, routine software updates, the malicious code went right along with them. It essentially created backdoors into Fortune 500 companies and even top-level US government agencies. This devastating breach is exactly why vendor risk assessments are now the single most common and frankly the most vital type of privacy audit companies do today. They absolutely have to verify that their partners are just as secure as they are. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, the Global Privacy Landscape. Let's zoom out and see how all of these intricate corporate mechanics fit into a gigantic, complex web of international laws. Because data, as we know, definitely does not respect geographical borders. Get this, right now, in the United States, there is actually no comprehensive federal privacy law. Instead, individual states are just passing their own completely different regulations. The Information Technology and Innovation Foundation looked at this and estimated that navigating this messy 50-state compliance patchwork could cost U.S. businesses up to $100 billion every single year. That is a staggering logistical and financial nightmare for privacy professionals to try and manage. And hey, that's just inside the US. Globally, over 160 nations have rolled out significant privacy laws. The European Union's GDPR really kicked things off, bringing the threat of massive fines that are based on a company's total worldwide revenue. But since then, places like China, Brazil, Japan, and South Korea have all enacted or totally revamped their own major privacy protections. So moving your data across borders today, it requires constant, meticulous legal maneuvering and incredibly complex cross-border agreements. So what does this all mean? Well, the laws are almost always going to be lagging behind the latest technological advancements, which leaves organizations facing a massive choice. Will they view privacy merely as this super frustrating legal hurdle, constantly scrambling just to avoid the latest fines? Or will they build a mature, highly ethical privacy program that actually respects the individual, embracing privacy as the ultimate competitive advantage to win your loyalty? Because at the end of the day, proactive privacy isn't just about dodging a penalty. It is the absolute cornerstone of trust in our digital economy. Will your business rise to the challenge? Thanks for tuning into this explainer, and stay safe out there.